3 p.m. Monday. Grace Sullivan steps through the iron gates of the Castellano mansion, her cleaning supplies clutched tightly against her chest, her heart pounding at the sight of men in black suits with guns barely concealed beneath their jackets. But it isn't the armed guards that make her blood run cold. It's that sound, the gut-wrenching cries of 2 babies echoing through the estate, cries that have not stopped for 4 months straight. 7 maids before her have fled in sheer terror. They say the most powerful mafia boss in New York can snap a traitor's neck without blinking. Yet here he is now, kneeling on the marble floor, begging a doctor through the phone, his voice choking as if he's about to collapse. He has spent $3 million. No one can save his daughters. Grace stands frozen, her hand unconsciously pressing against her stomach where the long scar from childbirth still aches. Her fingers brush against the tiny shoe hidden in her pocket, the only memento of Daniel, the son she held for just 3 short days before he was gone forever. She doesn't know that in just a few minutes, one unintentional act will create a miracle that $3 million couldn't buy and change all of their fates forever. Theodore Barnes, Theo, as everyone calls him, appears beside Grace like a shadow. At 58 years old, the butler has served the Castellano family for nearly 3 decades. His face carries the weight of secrets he will never tell, and his eyes hold a sadness that seems permanently etched into his features. "Follow me," he says quietly, his voice barely rising above the haunting cries that fill every corner of the mansion. "I will show you where you will be working." Grace follows him through the grand foyer, her eyes taking in the marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, the paintings that probably cost more than she would earn in 10 lifetimes. But beneath all the luxury, there is something else, something cold, something broken. "The man you saw," Theo begins, guiding her past a row of closed doors, "is Dominic Castellano, 37 years old, head of the Castellano family." He pauses, glancing back at her. "Do you know what that means?" Grace nods slowly. Everyone in New York knows the Castellano name. They control the underground world of this city, the gambling, the protection, the things people whisper about but never say aloud. Dominic Castellano is known as a man who is ruthless to his enemies but fair to those who serve him loyally. A man who has built an empire on blood and fear. But the man Grace saw kneeling on the floor, begging a doctor to save his children, that man looked nothing like an empire builder. He looked like a father drowning in despair. His wife, Theo continues, his voice dropping lower, was Isabella, the love of his life. They met when he was 25, married when he was 28. She was the only person in this world who could make him smile. They stop in front of a door that is slightly ajar. Through the gap, Grace sees a small shrine, a photograph of a beautiful woman with dark hair and gentle eyes, surrounded by candles that flicker softly in the dim light. "She died 4 months ago," Theo whispers. "Hemorrhage during childbirth. The doctors tried everything, but..." He shakes his head. Mr. Dominic stood outside the delivery room. He heard her calling his name, over and over, and he could do nothing. Grace feels her chest tighten. She knows that helplessness. She knows what it means to hear someone you love slipping away and being powerless to stop it. "The twins, Ava and Mia, they have been crying ever since," Theo says. It is as if they know, as if they can feel that their mother is gone and they are screaming for her to come back. He turns to face Grace directly, his expression grave. "There are rules in this house. You do not enter Mr. Dominic's private quarters. You do not ask questions about the family business. You do not speak to any guests unless spoken to first. Do you understand?" Grace nods. Theo studies her for a long moment, as if searching for something in her face. Then he sighs deeply. "7 maids before you have fled this house. Not because Mr. Dominic is frightening." He pauses, and the crying seems to grow louder, more desperate, more unbearable. But because of that sound, that endless crying, it is like a curse that no one can break. He looks toward the staircase, where the cries echo down like a storm that will never end. "I hope you are stronger than the others, Miss Sullivan, because this house, it needs a miracle." The staff quarters are small but clean, a narrow bed, a wooden dresser, a window that overlooks the garden. Grace sits on the edge of the mattress, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, listening to the cries that seep through the walls like water through cracks. Even here, 3 floors below the nursery, she can hear them. Ava and Mia, 2 tiny souls screaming for a mother who will never come. The sound burrows into her chest, wrapping around her heart like barbed wire. She closes her eyes, trying to block it out, but instead, the darkness behind her eyelids pulls her backward, back to a place she has spent years trying to forget. She is 6 years old again. The flames are everywhere, orange and red and hungry, devouring everything she knows. She stands on the front lawn in her pajamas, watching her house collapse into ash while firefighters hold her back. Her mother's screams have already stopped. Her father never made it out of the bedroom. Later, much later, she learns the truth. Her father owed money to dangerous people, gambling debts he could never repay. The fire was not an accident. It was a message. But at 6 years old, Grace only knows that she is alone. Aunt Linda takes her in. Her mother's sister, a woman with hollow cheeks and breath that always smells of whiskey. For 10 years, Grace lives in that house, learning to make herself invisible, learning to flinch at the sound of footsteps, learning that love is a word people use before they hurt you. Aunt Linda hits her when dinner is late, hits her when the house is not clean enough, hits her for breathing too loudly, for existing, for being a burden she never wanted. But Aunt Linda is not the worst part of that house. Uncle Roy is. Grace is 8 years old the first time he comes into her room at night. She does not understand what is happening. She only knows that it hurts, and that when she tries to scream, his hand covers her mouth so tightly she cannot breathe. He tells her no one will believe her. He tells her she is dirty, worthless, broken, and she believes him. For years, she believes every word. At 12, she swallows a bottle of Aunt Linda's sleeping pills. A neighbor finds her unconscious on the bathroom floor and calls an ambulance. The doctors pump her stomach. The social workers ask questions. Uncle Roy and Aunt Linda put on their best faces, but someone sees through the lies. Grace is taken to an orphanage. She thinks maybe, finally, she will be safe. She is wrong. Between 14 and 18, she is placed with 4 different foster families. 3 of them are no better than Aunt Linda's house. Different faces, same bruises. Different voices, same cruelty. She learns to sleep with her back against the wall. She learns to hide food under her mattress. She learns that the world is full of monsters wearing human skin. The scar on her left shoulder, a perfect circle of raised, puckered flesh, is from Uncle Roy's cigarette. A punishment for crying too loudly one night. She was 9 years old. She remembers the smell of her own burning skin more clearly than she remembers her mother's face. The baby's cries grow louder, pulling Grace back to the present. She opens her eyes, staring at the bare wall in front of her. Her hand moves unconsciously to her shoulder, pressing against the scar through her shirt. "You survived," she whispers to herself, the same words she has repeated 1,000 times before. "You will keep surviving." But when she catches her reflection in the small mirror above the dresser, she sees no strength in her eyes, only emptiness. Grace is still staring at her reflection when the memories drag her deeper, past the orphanage, past the foster homes, into a chapter she wishes she could tear from her own history. She is 19 years old when she meets Marcus Webb. He is 10 years older, charming, successful. A sales manager at a car dealership with a smile that makes her feel seen for the first time in her life. He buys her flowers. He opens doors for her. He tells her she is beautiful, precious, worthy of love. After 19 years of being told she is nothing, Marcus feels like salvation. They marry when she is 20, a small courthouse ceremony with no guests, no family, no witnesses except a stranger pulled from the hallway. Marcus says they do not need anyone else. He says they only need each other. At first, Grace believes him. Then the doors begin to close. He convinces her to quit her job. He takes control of the bank account. He monitors her phone, her emails, her every movement. Friends she has made, the few fragile connections she has built, disappear one by one, pushed away by Marcus's jealousy and rage. The first time he hits her, she is 20 years old. She burns dinner, and his fist connects with her jaw so fast she does not even see it coming. He apologizes afterward, weeping, promising it will never happen again. It happens again, and again, and again. At 21, Grace discovers she is pregnant. For one brief, shining moment, she allows herself to hope. A baby, a family, something to love that will love her back unconditionally. Marcus seems happy at first, but when she is 4 months along, she accidentally spills coffee on his paperwork. He beats her so severely that she wakes up in the hospital, her womb empty, her baby gone. The doctors tell her she suffered a miscarriage due to trauma. They do not ask how she got the bruises, or maybe they do not want to know. Grace goes home with Marcus. She does not know where else to go. At 22, she is pregnant again. This time, she is more careful. She walks on eggshells, speaks in whispers, makes herself as small as possible. She prays every night that this baby will survive. At 7 months, Marcus comes home drunk. She does not even know what she has done wrong. One moment she is standing in the kitchen, and the next, his foot connects with her stomach, and the world explodes into pain. Daniel is born 3 weeks later, premature, fragile, so impossibly small. He lives for 3 days. For 3 days, Grace holds her son in the hospital, memorizing every detail of his face, his tiny fingers, his dark hair, the way he looks at her with eyes that seem too wise for someone so new to the world. She sings to him soft lullabies she remembers from a childhood before the fire, before everything turned to ash. On the 3rd day, Daniel stops breathing. Grace feels something inside her die with him. The nurses let her hold him one last time. She removes one tiny shoe from his foot, a soft blue bootie, smaller than her palm, and tucks it into her pocket. It is all she has left of him. At 23, she finally tries to escape. She makes it 2 blocks before Marcus finds her. He drags her back by her hair and beats her until she cannot see, cannot breathe, cannot move. She spends 2 weeks in a coma. When she wakes, she learns that a neighbor finally called the police. Marcus is arrested, 5 years in prison. Now Grace is 26. She works 3 jobs to pay for her grandmother's care and the $47,000 of medical debt that hangs over her head like a guillotine. She lives alone in a crumbling apartment in Brooklyn, with nothing but a tiny shoe in her pocket and a heart full of scars. The baby's cries pierce through the walls, yanking her back to the present. But this time, something is different. This time, the sound does not just hurt her. It pulls at her, calls to her, as if somewhere in those desperate screams, 2 little girls are reaching out for something only she can give. Grace pushes herself up from the bed, forcing the memories back into the dark corners where they belong. She cannot afford to drown in the past. She has a job to do, bills to pay, a grandmother who needs her. She picks up her cleaning supplies and heads to the 2nd floor. The hallway stretches before her like a museum corridor, high ceilings, polished wood floors, paintings in gilded frames that probably cost more than she will ever earn in her lifetime. Grace starts at the far end, dusting shelves, wiping down surfaces, working methodically as Theo instructed. But the crying follows her everywhere. It seeps through the walls, crawls under the doors, wraps around her skull like a vice. She tries to block it out, focusing on the rhythm of her work. Wipe, spray, wipe, move on. But every wail from those babies cuts through her concentration like a knife through paper. She thinks of Daniel, his tiny chest rising and falling, the soft sounds he made in his sleep, the silence that came after. Grace clenches her jaw and keeps cleaning. She is halfway down the corridor when she notices a door slightly ajar. Soft pink light spills through the gap, and the crying is loudest here. The nursery. She should walk past. She should mind her own business. But something makes her stop. Through the narrow opening, she sees him. Dominic Castellano sits on the floor beside a white crib, his back against the wall, his legs stretched out in front of him. He holds one of the twins, Ava, Grace thinks, though she cannot be certain, cradled against his chest. His eyes are red and swollen. His jaw is covered in days of stubble. He looks nothing like the fearsome Mafia boss the world whispers about. He looks like a man who has lost everything. "I am sorry," he whispers to the screaming baby, his voice cracking on every word. "I am so sorry. I do not know what to do. I do not know how to help you." His shoulders shake. His head drops forward until his forehead nearly touches the baby's hair. "Your mother would know," he chokes out. "She always knew. And I am failing you. I am failing both of you." Grace cannot move, cannot breathe. She has never seen a man grieve like this. Never seen a father hold his child with such desperate, helpless love. The memory strikes her without warning. Marcus standing in the hospital room doorway after Daniel died. No tears, no sorrow, just cold, empty eyes and words that still haunt her nightmares. "Probably for the best," he had said, checking his watch. "You were never fit to be a mother anyway. 2 men, 2 fathers, one who could not care less about the child he lost, another who is destroying himself over children he cannot comfort." Grace presses her hand against her chest, trying to hold the pieces of her heart together. She steps back from the door silently, carefully, and walks away down the corridor. But the image stays with her. Dominic Castellano, the most powerful man in New York, kneeling on the floor of a nursery, begging forgiveness from a baby who cannot understand. And somewhere deep inside her, something begins to shift. The subway rattles through the darkness, carrying Grace away from the marble floors and crystal chandeliers of the Castellano mansion. With each stop, the passengers change suits, give way to uniforms, briefcases to grocery bags, tired faces replacing tired faces. By the time she reaches Brooklyn, the sky has turned black. Her apartment building stands on a street lined with overflowing trash cans and broken streetlights. The elevator has been out of order for 3 months. Grace climbs 5 flights of stairs, her legs aching, her heart heavier than her body. The apartment is exactly as she left it, peeling wallpaper, a kitchen faucet that drips no matter how tightly she turns it, a radiator that clangs and hisses but never produces enough heat. Through the thin walls, she can hear her neighbors arguing in Spanish, a baby crying somewhere above, a television blaring game shows below. Grace locks the door behind her and leans against it, finally allowing herself to breathe. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out the tiny blue shoe. It fits in the palm of her hand, so small, so impossibly small. She presses it against her chest, feeling the soft fabric against her skin, and closes her eyes. Her phone buzzes. The nursing home. Miss Sullivan? The voice on the other end is professionally sympathetic. I am calling with an update on your grandmother. Grace sinks onto the edge of her bed. How is she? Mrs. Helen had a difficult day. The Alzheimer's is progressing. She did not recognize any of the staff today, and she became quite agitated during dinner. A pause. I also wanted to remind you that this month's payment of $4,200 is due by Friday. Grace looks at her phone after the call ends. She opens her banking app with trembling fingers. $312. That is everything she has. The number stares back at her, cold and unforgiving. She thinks about the jobs she is juggling, the cleaning agency, the weekend shifts at a laundromat, the occasional babysitting for a neighbor. None of it is enough. It is never enough. She curls up on the bed, still clutching Daniel's shoe, and the tears finally come. I am sorry, she whispers into the darkness. I am so sorry, Daniel. I am trying so hard. She thinks of her grandmother, the only person who ever loved her unconditionally, sitting in that facility, lost in a fog of memories that no longer connect. She thinks of the $47,000 of debt hanging over her head like a death sentence. And she thinks of Dominic Castellano, kneeling on the floor of his mansion, surrounded by wealth beyond imagination, yet just as broken as she is. At least he still has his daughters to hold, she thinks bitterly. At least he has someone. I have nothing. Grace falls asleep with the tiny shoe pressed against her heart, and the nightmares come quickly. Marcus's face, his fists, his voice telling her she deserves everything that has happened to her. She does not wake until morning. Day 3 at the Castellano mansion begins like the others, with the sound of crying that never stops. Grace arrives early, her eyes still swollen from a sleepless night. Theo meets her at the service entrance, his face drawn with exhaustion that mirrors her own. Mr. Dominic has taken the twins to see another specialist, he says. They will be gone for a few hours. He wants the nursery cleaned while they are out. Grace nods and makes her way upstairs, her cleaning cart rattling softly on the marble floors. The nursery door swings open to reveal a room painted in soft shades of pink and cream. 2 white cribs sit side by side near the window, each one adorned with delicate lace canopies. Stuffed animals line the shelves, teddy bears and rabbits and elephants, all still wrapped in plastic. Never touched, never played with. The air carries the scent of baby powder mixed with something medicinal, something sad. This room was supposed to be filled with laughter, Grace thinks. Instead, it has only known tears. She begins her work methodically. Dusting the bookshelf filled with picture books the twins are too young to read. Wiping down the changing table. Organizing the wardrobe stuffed with tiny dresses in every color. When she reaches the tall shelf near the window, she stretches up on her toes to dust the top. Her elbow brushes against something, a glass bottle she did not see, and time seems to slow as it tumbles from its perch. The bottle shatters against the wooden floor. The scent of roses explodes through the room, so strong and sweet that Grace gasps. She drops to her knees, staring in horror at the glittering shards scattered across the ground. A pale pink liquid seeps into the wood, spreading like blood. She knows immediately what she has broken. Isabella's perfume. The bottle she saw on the shrine downstairs. One of the last things Dominic has left of his wife. No, 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 Grace whispers, her hands shaking as she begins gathering the pieces. A sharp edge slices across her palm, and blood wells up instantly, dripping onto the floor and mixing with the perfume. She does not stop. She cannot stop. She has to fix this. She has to. Footsteps pound up the staircase. Heavy, urgent, fast. Grace freezes, her bloody hand suspended over the broken glass. Dominic bursts through the door, Ava screaming in his arms. The baby's face is deep purple, her tiny fists clenched, her mouth open in a wail that seems to shake the walls. Behind him, Theo rushes in carrying Mia, who is crying just as desperately as her sister. The doctor canceled. Theo pants. Another emergency. We had to come back. Dominic's eyes sweep across the room and land on Grace kneeling on the floor, surrounded by broken glass. blood dripping from her hand, the overwhelming scent of roses filling every corner. His gaze moves to the empty space on the shelf, then to the shattered remains of the bottle. His face darkens. Something shifts behind his eyes, grief, rage, devastation, all colliding at once. That perfume was the last thing that smelled like Isabella, the last piece of her he could hold on to, and now it is gone, soaking into the floorboards, disappearing forever. Grace opens her mouth to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, to explain that it was an accident. But before Dominic can speak, before Grace can find her voice, something strange happens, something no one in this room expects. Grace is still kneeling on the floor, her hand bleeding, her heart pounding with fear. She waits for the shouting, the anger, the punishment she knows she deserves for destroying something so precious. But the only sound is Ava's screaming. The baby's cries pierce through the room like shattered glass, raw and desperate and endless. Grace looks at the tiny face purple with effort, twisted in agony, tears streaming down cheeks that have probably never been dry, and something inside her shifts. It is not a thought. It is deeper than that, primal, instinctive, a pull she cannot explain or resist. Like an invisible thread has wrapped around her chest and is drawing her toward this suffering child. Before she knows what she is doing, Grace rises to her feet. Blood drips from her palm onto the floor, but she does not notice. Her arms reach out toward Dominic, toward the screaming baby in his arms. "Let me." Her voice comes out as a whisper. "Let me hold her, please." Dominic stares at her. His eyes are hollow, ringed with dark circles, filled with 4 months of sleepless nights and unanswered prayers. He should refuse. He should demand to know why his wife's perfume is shattered on the floor. He should fire her on the spot. But he is so tired, so utterly, completely exhausted. Without a word, he places Ava into Grace's arms. The moment the baby touches her chest, everything changes. Ava stops crying, not gradually, not slowly fading into whimpers. She simply stops as if someone has flipped a switch inside her, as if the screaming that has filled this house for 4 months was never real at all. Silence falls over the nursery like a blanket of snow. Grace stands frozen, afraid to move, afraid to breathe, afraid that any small motion will break whatever spell has fallen over this room. Ava's eyes, red and swollen from crying, open slowly and look up at her. Not screaming, not wailing, just looking, as if she has been searching for this face her entire short life. In Theo's arms, Mia's cries begin to fade. The baby turns her head toward her sister, toward the stranger holding her, and grows quiet too. "Dear God," Theo breathes, his voice cracking. He clutches Mia tighter, as if afraid she might disappear. What is happening? Dominic does not answer. He cannot answer. He stands motionless, his mouth slightly open, his eyes wide with something that might be shock or terror or hope, or all three at once. Grace begins to rock gently, instinctively, the way she rocked Daniel in those 3 precious days she had with him. A melody rises in her throat, a lullaby she used to sing to her son, soft and sweet and full of all the love she never got to give him. She does not realize she is crying until she feels the tears dripping down her chin. Is she crying for Ava? For Daniel? For all the children she has lost and all the pain she has carried? She does not know. She only knows that this baby in her arms feels like a second chance she does not deserve. Ava's tiny fingers reach up and clutch the fabric of Grace's shirt. Her eyes flutter closed. Her breathing slows. And for the first time in 4 months, she drifts into peaceful sleep. Theo hurries to place Mia in her crib, moving as carefully as if the baby were made of glass. Miraculously, Mia does not wake. She does not cry. She simply curls onto her side and sleeps. The room falls into a silence so profound it feels sacred. Dominic's legs give out beneath him. He slides down the wall until he is sitting on the floor, his back against the plaster, his shoulders trembling, not with anger, not with grief, but with something he has not allowed himself to feel in 4 months. Hope. He looks up at Grace, this woman he barely knows, this maid he hired 3 days ago standing in the middle of the nursery with his daughter sleeping peacefully in her arms. Who? His voice breaks. He swallows hard and tries again, the words barely louder than a breath. Who are you? Grace does not answer. She cannot. She just holds Ava close and lets the tears fall, feeling the baby's heartbeat against her own. For the first time in 4 months, the Castellano mansion is silent. Dominic does not let Grace leave that night. "Stay," he says, and it is not a request. His voice is hoarse, his eyes desperate. "Please, just stay and see if it happens again." Grace wants to refuse. Every instinct screams at her to run away from this mansion, away from this man, away from hope that will only be crushed. but Ava is still sleeping in her arms, so peaceful, so trusting, and she cannot bring herself to put the baby down. She stays. The miracle repeats itself. When Mia wakes at midnight, Grace holds her. The baby quiets instantly. When Ava stirs at 3 a.m, Grace rocks her back to sleep within minutes. For the first time in 4 months, both twins sleep through most of the night. Dominic stands in the doorway of the nursery, watching. He does not enter. He does not speak. He simply watches his daughters sleep, actually sleep, and something in his broken face begins to mend. The next morning, Theo brings Grace to Dominic's office. The room is dark and heavy, filled with leather furniture and shelves of old books. Behind the massive desk, the shrine to Isabella glows softly, her photograph surrounded by candles. Forever young, forever smiling, Dominic sits in a high-backed chair, looking more exhausted than ever, but somehow less hollow than before. "Sit," he says, gesturing to the chair across from him. Grace sits, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "I want you to become their full-time nanny," Dominic says without preamble. "You will live here, in the mansion. Your salary will be 10 times what the agency pays you." Grace's breath catches. 10 times. That would be more money than she has ever seen in her life. "I will also cover all medical expenses for your family," Dominic continues, his eyes never leaving her face. "Theo told me about your grandmother, the nursing home, the Alzheimer's, the bills. I will pay for everything." The world tilts beneath Grace's feet. She thinks of Helen, her grandmother, the only person who ever truly loved her, trapped in a facility she cannot afford, slipping further away each day. She thinks of the $47,000 of debt crushing her. She thinks of the 3 jobs she works just to survive. And then she thinks of what it means to live in this house, a mansion full of armed men, the headquarters of a Mafia empire, sharing a roof with a man powerful enough to make people disappear. Marcus's face flashes through her mind, his smile before he hit her, his promises before he broke them. "Why?" Grace asks, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you do this for me?" Dominic is silent for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice is raw. "Because my daughters have not slept in 4 months. Because I have spent $3 million on doctors who could not help them. Because last night, for the first time since their mother died, they were at peace." He pauses. "I do not know why they respond to you. I do not care why. I only know that you are the only person who can help them." Grace stares at her hands. The cut on her palm throbs beneath the bandage Theo wrapped around it last night. "If I agree," she says slowly, "I have one condition." Dominic raises an eyebrow. "Name it." Grace forces herself to meet his eyes. "You do not touch me, ever, no matter what." Something flickers across Dominic's face, not offense, not anger, something closer to understanding. He holds her gaze for a long moment, then nods once. "I am not that kind of man," he says quietly. Grace does not know why, but she believes him. And somehow, that terrifies her more than if she did not. 2 weeks pass, and the Castellano mansion begins to transform. Grace moves into a room on the same floor as the nursery, a space far larger than her entire Brooklyn apartment, with a soft bed, a private bathroom, and windows that overlook a garden she never knew existed in the middle of Manhattan. But she spends most of her time in the nursery, where Ava and Mia have become her entire world. The miracle does not fade. Every night, the twins sleep peacefully in her arms. Every morning, they wake without screaming. It is as if Grace's presence has broken some invisible curse that held them captive since the day they were born. And then, something even more remarkable happens. Ava smiles. It is a Tuesday morning, ordinary in every way, when Grace leans over the crib to pick her up. Ava looks at her face, and her tiny lips curl upward. A real smile, the first one anyone in this house has ever seen. Grace's heart nearly stops. By the end of the week, both twins are smiling whenever they see her. Their eyes light up. Their little arms reach toward her. They make sounds that are not cries, coos, and gurgles and the beginnings of laughter. The mansion transforms around them. The heavy silence that once filled every hallway gives way to something lighter. Staff members who used to walk with their heads down now pause to peek into the nursery, their faces softening at the sight of the babies playing peacefully. The cook hums while preparing meals. The gardener whistles in the courtyard. Even the guards, stone-faced men with guns beneath their jackets, seem less rigid, their lips twitching whenever they hear the twins giggling. Theo is the most changed of all. The old butler, who has carried decades of secrets in his weary eyes, now smiles openly whenever he passes the nursery door. "It is like the house has come back to life," he tells Grace one afternoon. "You have brought something we all thought was gone forever." Dominic notices too. He starts coming home earlier each day, slipping away from meetings and business that once consumed him. Grace often catches him standing in the doorway of the nursery, watching her play with his daughters. He never enters. He never interrupts. He simply watches, his expression unreadable. But Grace feels his eyes on her. She notices how his gaze lingers when she laughs at something Mia does. She sees the questions forming behind his eyes, questions he never asks. Why does she always wear long sleeves, even in the warmth of the nursery? Why does she flinch whenever someone approaches too quickly? Why does she never look him directly in the eye? Grace pretends not to notice. She focuses on the twins, on their smiles, on the small joy she has found in caring for them. She tells herself that Dominic's attention means nothing, that she is just the nanny, that this is just a job. But late at night, when the mansion falls quiet and the twins are asleep, she sometimes catches herself thinking about the way he looked at her, and it frightens her more than she wants to admit. For the first time in 4 months, Dominic Castellano walks through his home and feels something he thought had died with Isabella. This place feels like a family again. By the 4th week, something shifts between them. It begins with breakfast. Dominic has always eaten alone quick meals at his desk between phone calls and meetings, or nothing at all during the worst of the sleepless months. But one morning, he walks into the small dining room adjacent to the kitchen and finds Grace feeding the twins in their high chairs. Ava has applesauce on her cheeks. Mia is blowing bubbles in her milk, and Grace is laughing a real laugh, unguarded and warm. Dominic stops in the doorway. Grace looks up, her smile fading into uncertainty. "I can take them to the nursery," she says quickly, starting to rise. "No," the word comes out softer than he intends. "Stay, I will join you." From that day forward, breakfast becomes a ritual. They sit together each morning, Dominic with his coffee, Grace with the twins between them, and slowly, carefully, they begin to talk. At first, the conversations are safe. How did Ava sleep? Is Mia teething? Should they try a different formula? But gradually, the walls begin to crack. "You read to them," Dominic observes one morning, nodding toward the stack of picture books Grace keeps in the nursery. "Every night." Grace shrugs, wiping cereal from Mia's chin. "Children should grow up with stories." "I agree." He pauses, and something like embarrassment crosses his face. "I collect old books, first editions, Dickens, Austen, Bronte." He clears his throat. "It surprises people. They expect a man in my position to collect guns or cars." Grace looks at him, really looks at him for the first time. "I wanted to be a preschool teacher," she says quietly. "Before everything. I wanted to read stories to children every day." She does not explain what everything means. He does not ask. The flowers appear the next day. A vase of pink roses in the nursery, sitting on the windowsill where the morning light catches them. Dominic claims they are for the babies, something about colors being good for development, but when Grace turns away, she catches Theo smiling knowingly in the doorway. The changes in Grace are subtle but undeniable. She laughs more easily now. Her shoulders do not climb toward her ears every time Dominic enters a room. She no longer flinches when he passes behind her chair, but she still wears long sleeves, even when the nursery grows warm. She still avoids his eyes when they talk. She still keeps a careful distance, as if too much closeness might burn her. Because she remembers. She remembers Marcus's charm in those early days. The flowers he brought, the sweet words he spoke, the safety she felt before it all turned to violence. And she knows that warmth can be a trap. That kindness can be a weapon. That the softer she becomes, the easier she will be to break. One evening, after Grace has sung the twins to sleep, she turns to find Dominic standing in the doorway. The nursery is dim, lit only by a small nightlight shaped like a star. "Thank you," he says. Just 2 words. Simple, quiet. But the way he says them, like they are pulled from somewhere deep inside him, somewhere he has kept locked for months, makes Grace's heart stumble over its own rhythm. She nods quickly and looks away, afraid of what he might see in her eyes. The scream shatters the silence of the mansion at 2 a.m. Dominic is walking past Grace's room, unable to sleep as usual, when he hears it a sound so raw, so full of terror, that it stops him cold. "No, don't, Daniel!" He does not think. He does not hesitate. He throws open the door and rushes inside. Grace is tangled in her sheets, thrashing violently, her body drenched in sweat. Her face is twisted in agony, tears streaming down her cheeks, her hands clawing at invisible attackers. "Grace!" Dominic moves to the bed, reaching for her shoulder. "Grace, wake up! You are dreaming." The moment his hand touches her, she explodes. "Don't hit me!" she screams, her eyes flying open but seeing nothing, only ghosts, only memories. Please don't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She shoves him backward with a strength born of pure terror, scrambling away until her back hits the headboard. Her arms come up to shield her face, and she curls into herself, making herself as small as possible. Dominic freezes. He holds up both hands, palms out, and takes a slow step back. Grace. His voice is low, gentle. The voice he uses with his daughters when they wake crying. Grace, it is me, Dominic. You are safe. No one is going to hurt you. Slowly, painfully. The panic begins to drain from her eyes. She blinks once, twice, and the present comes flooding back: the unfamiliar room, the soft bed, the man standing 3 feet away with his hands raised in surrender. Her voice breaks. I am sorry. I did not mean to. Do not apologize. Dominic's gaze drops to her arm. In the struggle, her sleeve has been pushed up past her elbow, revealing what she has fought so hard to hide. Scars, long, pale lines crisscrossing her skin, some thin as threads, others thick and raised, the kind that come from wounds that never healed properly. Grace follows his eyes and yanks her sleeve down, shame flooding her face. But Dominic does not ask. He does not demand explanations or press for details. Instead, he moves slowly to the chair beside her bed and sits down, keeping a careful distance between them. You do not have to explain anything, he says quietly. Not now, not ever, but I need you to understand something. He waits until her eyes meet his. You are safe here, in this house, under this roof. I swear it on my daughters' lives. The silence stretches between them, heavy with unspoken words. Grace stares at her hands, at the scars she knows are hidden beneath the fabric, at the trembling she cannot control, and something inside her cracks a wall she has built over years of pain, years of survival, years of trusting no one. I had a son, she whispers. Dominic does not move, does not speak. He simply listens. His name was Daniel. Her voice is barely audible. He lived for 3 days. 3 days where I held him, and sang to him, and told him I would protect him forever. A sob escapes her throat. My ex-husband. She cannot say his name. It feels like poison on her tongue. He is the reason my son is dead. He is the reason I have these scars. He is the reason I wake up screaming every night. The tears come then hot and unstoppable, pouring down her face like rain. She has not cried in front of a man since Daniel died. She swore she never would again. But here, in this dark room, with this dangerous man sitting silently beside her, she cannot hold it back anymore. Dominic does not reach for her. He does not offer empty comfort or hollow promises. He simply sits there, a solid presence in the darkness, close enough to matter but far enough to feel safe. He stays all night. When the first light of dawn creeps through the curtains, Grace realizes she has slept, truly slept, without nightmares for the first time in years. And she realizes something else. For the first time in her life, she feels protected. Grace finds Dominic in the garden the next morning. She has been looking for him since dawn, wanting to thank him for staying with her through the night, wanting to apologize for falling apart in front of him. But when she steps through the glass doors and sees him sitting alone on a stone bench, staring at nothing, the words die in her throat. He looks up at the sound of her footsteps. His eyes are red-rimmed, heavy with a sleepless night, and something deeper, something that has been building for 4 months. Sit, he says quietly. Please. Grace hesitates, then lowers herself onto the bench beside him, leaving a careful space between their bodies. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. The morning air is cool and damp, carrying the scent of roses from somewhere deeper in the garden. Birds sing in the trees above them, oblivious to the weight of the silence below. My wife died on the delivery table. Dominic's voice is flat, empty, as if he is reading words from a script someone else has written. The doctors said there were complications, hemorrhaging. They tried everything, but he stops, swallows hard. I was standing outside the door. I could hear her calling my name, over and over. Dominic, Dominic, please. His hands clench into fists on his knees. I am the most powerful man in New York. I have made grown men beg for their lives. I have built an empire with my bare hands. His voice cracks, and I could not save her. I could not even hold her hand while she died. Grace feels her heart splitting open. Every time I look at Ava and Mia, Dominic continues. I see her face, her eyes, her smile, and I see my own failure. I see the promise I made on our wedding day to protect her, to keep her safe, and I see how completely I broke it. He turns to look at Grace, and she sees it now, the guilt that has been eating him alive for 4 months, the same guilt she carries for Daniel. The same weight that makes it impossible to breathe some nights. You are not at fault, Grace whispers. Dominic shakes his head. You do not understand, I do understand. Her voice is stronger now. I understand exactly. But Isabella did not die because you failed her. She died because sometimes the universe takes things from us, and there is no reason, no logic, no one to blame. She pauses, forcing herself to meet his eyes. It was destiny, cruel and unfair and senseless. But it was not your fault. Dominic stares at her for a long moment. Then he speaks, and his words shatter something inside her that has been frozen for years. And Daniel, he says softly, Daniel did not die because you failed him either. Grace stops breathing. Your ex-husband is a monster. What happened to your son that was his evil, not your failure? You did everything you could to protect that child. You loved him. You held him. You gave him 3 days of peace in a world that had given you none. Tears spill down Grace's cheeks. No one has ever said this to her. Not once. For 4 years, she has carried the weight of Daniel's death on her shoulders, believing she should have done more, been stronger, fought harder, believing that somehow, in some way, it was her fault. And now this man, this broken, grieving, dangerous man, is telling her the words she has needed to hear her entire life. It was not your fault, Dominic repeats. None of it was your fault. Grace breaks. She cries not the panicked tears of nightmares, but deep, wrenching sobs that come from somewhere she has kept locked away for years. She cries for Daniel, for her lost childhood, for every scar on her body and every wound on her soul. Dominic does not touch her. He does not try to stop her tears or fill the silence with empty comfort. He simply sits beside her, two broken people sharing the weight of grief too heavy to carry alone. From that morning forward, something changes between them. An invisible thread, fragile but unbreakable, begins to weave itself around two souls who thought they would never heal. Week 6 begins with the arrival of a ghost. Grace is in the nursery, changing Mia's diaper, while Ava plays with a soft rattle nearby. When she hears the commotion downstairs, voices raised, heels clicking sharply on marble, a woman's laugh high and cold and somehow dangerous. Minutes later, the nursery door swings open without a knock. The woman standing in the doorway is stunning, 34 years old, with jet black hair cascading over her shoulders, lips painted blood red, and a designer dress that probably costs more than Grace's yearly salary. Her eyes sweep across the room like a predator surveying prey. So this is where Dominic hides his precious little angels, she says, her voice dripping with honey and poison. Grace instinctively steps in front of the cribs, her body blocking the twins from view. Can I help you? The woman's gaze lands on Grace, and her perfectly sculpted eyebrows arch upward. And who are you? I am the nanny. The nanny. She repeats the word like it tastes sour. How? Quaint. She takes a step forward, and Grace's heart begins to race. Every instinct screams at her to run, to hide, to make herself invisible. The old fear, the fear Marcus trained into her bones, comes flooding back. I am Vanessa Hartwell, the woman announces, as if the name should mean something. My family and the Castellanos have been allies for 3 generations. Dominic and I were practically engaged before that woman stole him from me. That woman, she means Isabella. Vanessa moves closer, her eyes raking over Grace with undisguised contempt. You are touching his children, caring for them, living under his roof. Her smile turns sharp as a blade. Does the little maid have ambitions above her station? Grace lowers her head, unable to meet those cruel eyes. Her shoulders curl inward. Her voice shrinks to a whisper. I am just doing my job. See that you remember that. Vanessa leans in close, her perfume overwhelming. Know your place. Servants do not belong in the family. She turns and sweeps out of the nursery, leaving Grace trembling beside the cribs. Downstairs, Vanessa finds Dominic in his office. She does not wait for an invitation. She walks in as if she owns the place, settling herself on the edge of his desk with practiced elegance. Her dress rides up just enough to reveal long, smooth legs. Dominic, she purrs. It has been too long. He does not look up from his paperwork. What do you want, Vanessa? I heard about Isabella. Such a tragedy. Her voice holds no sympathy whatsoever. A man in your position needs a wife, someone from a proper family, someone who understands our world. I am not interested. The twins need a mother. She reaches out to touch his hand. I could be that for them. For you, our families have always expected us to. Do not. Dominic's voice cuts like ice. He finally looks up, and his eyes are colder than she has ever seen them. Do not speak about my children. Do not pretend you care about them. And do not ever touch me again. Vanessa's seductive mask slips, revealing something ugly beneath. You cannot mourn her forever, Dominic. Isabella is dead. I am here. I have always been here. Get out, Dominic, now. She rises slowly, smoothing her dress with deliberate calm. But as she reaches the door, she pauses and looks back. That nanny of yours, she says casually. There is something strange about her. The way you look at her. The way she looks at your children. Her smile returns, sharper than before. I think I will find out more about her. She leaves without waiting for a response. In the hallway, Vanessa pulls out her phone, her mind already spinning with plans. That mousy little maid with the scared eyes and the long sleeves, there is a story there. Secrets waiting to be uncovered. And Vanessa Hartwell is very good at uncovering secrets. 3 days after her humiliating dismissal from the Castellano mansion, Vanessa Hartwell sits in a private booth at an upscale restaurant in Manhattan, flipping through a thick manila folder. Across from her, a man in a cheap suit watches nervously. He is a private investigator, the kind who asks no questions and digs up dirt for anyone willing to pay. You have done well, Vanessa murmurs, her red nails tracing the pages. Very well indeed. The folder contains everything. Every secret Grace Sullivan has ever tried to bury. There are police reports from when Grace was 6 years old, a house fire that killed both parents, ruled arson, connected to gambling debts. Records from Child Protective Services documenting years of abuse at the hands of an alcoholic aunt. Medical files that make even Vanessa's cold heart pause for a moment, evidence of injuries no child should ever suffer. And then there is Uncle Roy. Vanessa reads the details with clinical detachment. The abuse that started when Grace was 8. The suicide attempt at 12. The foster homes afterward. 3 out of 4 documented as abusive. Pathetic, she whispers. The girl has been broken since birth. She turns the page and finds what she is really looking for. Marcus Webb, married to Grace Sullivan when she was 20, convicted of aggravated assault 4 years ago, currently serving a 5-year sentence at Rikers Island. 1 year left until release. The investigator has included photographs. Marcus is a large man with cold eyes and a cruel mouth. His criminal record stretches back years: assault, battery, domestic violence charges that were dropped when victims refused to testify. And then there are the medical records from Grace's marriage. 2 pregnancies, 2 losses. The first at 4 months, blunt force trauma to the abdomen. The second, born premature at 7 months, lived for only 3 days. Cause of early labor. Severe physical trauma consistent with assault. The baby's name was Daniel. Vanessa closes the folder and smiles. Perfect, she says softly. Absolutely perfect. The investigator shifts uncomfortably. Is there anything else you need, Miss Hartwell? Not from you. She slides an envelope across the table. Your payment. And your silence. He takes the money and leaves without another word. Alone in the booth, Vanessa opens the folder again, studying Marcus Webb's photograph. This is a man who nearly killed his wife multiple times. A man who caused the death of his own child. A man who, according to prison records, has sworn to find Grace when he gets out. A man who would be very interested to know that his ex-wife is living in a Manhattan mansion, playing house with a Mafia boss. Vanessa pulls out her phone and dials a number. It rings twice before a gruff voice answers. I need to arrange a visit to Rikers Island, she says smoothly. An inmate named Marcus Webb. Tell him a friend wants to discuss his wife. She hangs up and looks at the photograph one more time. Dominic thinks he can reject her. Thinks he can replace Isabella with some broken little maid. But Vanessa Hartwell does not lose. She will destroy Grace Sullivan, expose her shameful past to the entire Mafia world, and then let her monster of an ex-husband finish the job. Perhaps, she murmurs to the photograph, it is time we meet, Mr. Webb. The annual gathering of the 5 families takes place at the Castellano mansion on a cold Saturday evening. Grace watches from the shadows as black cars pull up to the entrance, depositing men in expensive suits and women dripping with diamonds. She has been instructed to stay out of sight, Theo made that clear, but Dominic asked her to keep the twins nearby in case they need her. She stands in the hallway outside the nursery, listening to the murmur of conversation drifting up from below, when she hears heels clicking on the stairs. Vanessa Hartwell ascends like a queen, dressed in a gown of emerald silk that clings to every curve. Her eyes find Grace immediately, and a smile spreads across her face, the smile of a cat that has cornered a mouse. There you are, Vanessa purrs, the little nanny. Come, Dominic wants everyone to meet the miracle worker who calmed his savage little beasts. Before Grace can protest, Vanessa grabs her wrist and pulls her toward the staircase. Grace stumbles after her, too shocked to resist, and suddenly she is standing at the entrance to the grand ballroom, dozens of eyes turning to stare. Vanessa raises her voice, ensuring everyone can hear. "Dominic, darling, I was just chatting with your nanny." She pauses dramatically. "Did you know she was married before? To a man currently sitting in prison?" The room falls silent. Grace feels the blood drain from her face. "And the child," Vanessa continues, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "That poor baby who died under such tragic circumstances. What was his name again? Daniel?" Grace cannot breathe. The room spins around her. She sees the faces of strangers twisting with curiosity, judgment, pity. She sees her past, every shameful, painful secret, laid bare before people who will never understand. Enough. Dominic's voice cuts through the whispers like a blade. He crosses the room in 3 strides, his face dark with fury. "Get out of my house," he says to Vanessa, his voice low and deadly. "Now. Dominic, I was only..." Now. 2 guards appear at Vanessa's sides. She opens her mouth to protest, but something in Dominic's eyes stops her. She allows herself to be escorted out, but not before casting one last triumphant glance at Grace. The damage is done. Grace runs. She does not remember climbing the stairs. She does not remember entering her room. She only knows that suddenly she is sitting on the floor with her back against the locked door, her knees pulled to her chest, her body shaking with sobs. They all know. Everyone knows. The whispers will spread through the Mafia families like wildfire. Dominic will realize what she truly is: damaged, worthless, broken beyond repair. He will send her away, just like everyone always does. A knock on the door makes her flinch. "Grace." Dominic's voice is soft. "Open the door. Please go away. I am not leaving." Silence stretches between them. "I do not care about your past," he says through the wood. "I do not care what that woman said, or what anyone else thinks. I only care about who you are now." Grace presses her forehead against her knees. "You do not understand. I am broken. Then we are the same." His voice cracks slightly. "We are both broken, Grace. But maybe our broken pieces can fit together." Slowly, Grace reaches up and unlocks the door. When she opens it, Dominic is standing there, not reaching for her, not pushing, just waiting. His eyes hold no judgment, no pity, only understanding. For the first time in her life, Grace allows herself to think the impossible. Maybe she deserves to be loved after all. 2 weeks after the disaster at the party, Grace's world shatters again. She is feeding the twins their morning bottle when Theo appears in the nursery doorway. His face is pale, his hands trembling slightly as he holds a folded newspaper. "Miss Grace," he says quietly, "there is something you need to see." Grace takes the paper with a sense of dread already building in her chest. Her eyes scan the page until they land on a small article buried in the local news section. Early release. Marcus Webb freed due to good behavior. The bottle slips from her fingers. Mia begins to cry, startled by the sudden movement, but Grace cannot hear her. She cannot hear anything except the roaring in her ears and the echo of Marcus's voice from 4 years ago, his face inches from hers as she lay bleeding on the floor. "I will find you, Grace. Wherever you run, wherever you hide, I will find you, and I will kill you." The room spins. Grace grabs the edge of the crib to keep from falling. Across town, in a dingy motel room that smells of cigarettes and desperation, Marcus Webb stares at photographs spread across the bed. Grace, his property. She is standing in front of a mansion that looks like a palace, holding 2 babies in her arms. She is smiling, actually smiling in a way she never smiled for him. The Castellano mansion. Vanessa's voice purrs from the phone pressed to his ear. She has been living there for almost 2 months, playing nanny to Dominic Castellano's twins. Marcus's jaw tightens until his teeth ache. That whore thinks she can hide from me by crawling into another man's bed? Apparently she has become quite important to him. Vanessa's tone is carefully casual. He defends her, protects her. Some say he might even have feelings for her. A vein pulses in Marcus's temple. The idea of Grace belonging to someone else, of another man touching what is his, makes him want to destroy everything in sight. "What do you want?" he growls. "The same thing you want. Grace Sullivan out of that house, out of Dominic's life, permanently. And what do I get in return?" Vanessa laughs softly. "Access. I can get you inside the mansion. I can tell you exactly when the guards change shifts, when Dominic will be away, when Grace will be alone with those precious little babies." Marcus's lips curl into a smile that holds no warmth. "I'm listening." The plan takes shape over the following days. Vanessa provides the intelligence schedules, security details, floor plans she obtained through her family's connections. Marcus provides the muscle men he knows from prison, desperate criminals willing to do anything for the right price. They will take Grace and the twins. Hold them somewhere, Dominic will never find them. Force the great Mafia boss to choose between his empire and his family. Marcus does not care about the power play. He only wants Grace. He wants to see the fear in her eyes again. Wants to hear her beg. Wants to finish what he started 4 years ago. Back at the mansion, Grace cannot shake the feeling of being watched. She sees it first from the nursery window, a black sedan parked across the street, its windows tinted too dark to see inside. It appears every morning and disappears every night. She feels eyes on her when she walks in the garden with the twins. Familiar eyes. Eyes she has seen in 1,000 nightmares. She should tell Dominic. She should tell Theo. She should tell someone. But the fear is too deep, too ingrained. Marcus trained her never to speak, never to ask for help, never to believe anyone would protect her. So she stays silent. But her hands tremble every time she holds Ava and Mia, and somewhere in her bones, she knows the storm is coming. The twins fall asleep earlier than usual that night. Grace stands over their cribs, watching their small chests rise and fall, their faces peaceful in the soft glow of the nightlight. After weeks of tension and fear, this quiet moment feels like a gift she does not deserve. She senses Dominic before she sees him, his presence filling the doorway, solid and warm. They look like angels when they sleep, he says softly, moving to stand beside her. They are angels, Grace whispers. They saved me as much as I saved them. Silence settles between them, comfortable and heavy with unspoken words. The nursery feels smaller somehow, the space between their bodies shrinking with each passing breath. Dominic reaches out and takes her hand. Grace freezes. Every instinct screams at her to pull away, to protect herself, to run before she gets hurt again. But his touch is gentle, so impossibly gentle, and his fingers simply rest against hers, asking nothing, demanding nothing. She does not pull away. I need to tell you something, Dominic says, his voice rough. Something I should have said weeks ago. Grace looks up at him, her heart pounding. I know I do not deserve you. The words come slowly, painfully, as if each one costs him something. My hands are covered in blood. I have done terrible things, things that would make you run if you knew the truth. I am not a good man, Grace. I have never pretended to be. He pauses, his jaw tightening. But when I am with you, when I watch you with my daughters, I want to be different. I want to be better. His eyes meet hers, dark and vulnerable. You make me want to be someone worthy of the way you look at them. Grace feels tears building behind her eyes. I thought I would never trust a man again, she whispers. After everything Marcus did, I swore I would never let anyone close, never let anyone have the power to hurt me. She takes a shaky breath. But you are different. You see my scars and you do not look away. You know my past and you do not judge me. You have never once made me feel afraid. Dominic lifts his hand to her face, his fingers brushing her cheek so softly she barely feels it. I will never hurt you, he says. I swear on my children's lives. I will protect you from anyone who tries. And I will stay with Ava and Mia, Grace replies, her voice breaking. I will love them as if they were my own. I will never leave them. Dominic leans down, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She does not. Their lips meet in a kiss that tastes of tears and promises soft, trembling, full of all the broken pieces they have shared. It is not passionate or desperate. It is something deeper, something sacred. When they finally pull apart, Grace rests her forehead against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. In that moment, wrapped in his arms, she forgets about the black sedan parked outside, forgets about Marcus and Vanessa and all the danger circling closer with each passing day. She forgets that the storm is almost here. The morning begins like any other. Dominic kisses Ava and Mia on their foreheads before leaving for a meeting across town. An urgent summons from the heads of the allied families, something about territory disputes that cannot wait. He pauses at the nursery door, looking back at Grace. I will return by evening, he says. Stay inside today. Something feels wrong. Grace nods, but before she can respond, his phone rings again. He answers it with a frown, already walking toward the stairs. She does not know that the meeting is a trap, that Vanessa arranged it specifically to draw Dominic away from the mansion, that the real danger is already circling outside the gates. By noon, the sky has turned gray with approaching storm clouds. Grace is reading to the twins in the nursery when she hears a crash from somewhere downstairs, followed by shouts and the unmistakable sound of gunfire. Her blood freezes. She rushes to the cribs, scooping Ava into one arm and Mia into the other. The babies sense her fear and begin to whimper. Shh, shh, she whispers desperately. It is okay. Everything is okay. But it is not okay. More gunshots. A scream that sounds like Theo. Then footsteps heavy, purposeful, climbing the stairs. Grace backs into the corner of the nursery, her body shielding the twins. Her eyes dart around the room, searching for a weapon, an escape, anything. The door bursts open, and there he is. Marcus Webb stands in the doorway, his face twisted into a smile that has haunted her nightmares for 4 years. Blood splashes across his shirt, not his own. His eyes sweep the room until they find her cowering in the corner. "Hello, Grace," he says, his voice soft and terrifying. "Miss me?" Grace cannot breathe, cannot move. Every scar on her body burns as if freshly made. "I told you I would find you." He steps into the room, glass crunching under his boots. "Did you think you could hide from me? Did you think your new boyfriend could protect you? Stay away from us." Her voice comes out as a whisper. Marcus laughs, a cold, cruel sound. "Us? You mean those brats you are clutching like they belong to you?" He takes another step closer. "You could not even keep our son alive. What makes you think you can protect someone else's children?" Something shifts inside Grace. The fear is still there, it will always be there, but beneath it, something else rises. Something fierce, something maternal, something that has been growing since the first moment she held Ava in her arms. "You killed Daniel," she says, her voice stronger now. "You beat me until my body could not carry him anymore. You murdered our son." "He was weak," Marcus spits. "Just like you." "I am not weak." Grace straightens her spine, holding the twins tighter. "And you will not touch these children. Not while I am breathing." Marcus's face darkens. "Then I guess I will have to fix that." He lunges. Grace twists away, shielding the babies with her body as Marcus's fist connects with her shoulder. Pain explodes through her arm, but she does not let go. She cannot let go. He grabs her hair and yanks her backward. She stumbles, nearly dropping Mia, and Marcus's hand closes around her throat. "I am going to enjoy this," he hisses. Grace's vision blurs. The twins are screaming. Her lungs burn for air. Her hand finds the dresser beside her, finds the mirror sitting on top. With the last of her strength, she swings it at Marcus's face. Glass shatters. Marcus howls, blood pouring from a gash across his cheek. His grip loosens just enough for Grace to wrench free. She falls to her knees, gasping, the twins still clutched against her chest. "You little." Marcus raises his fist. The door explodes inward. Dominic stands in the doorway, his suit splashed with blood, his eyes blazing with a fury that makes Marcus look like a child playing at violence. Behind him, bodies litter the hallway, Vanessa's men, taken down one by one as Dominic tore through the mansion like a force of nature. Marcus barely has time to turn before Dominic is on him. The fight is brutal and short. Marcus is strong, but Dominic is something else entirely. A man trained in violence since childhood, fueled by rage and terror and love. He breaks Marcus's arm with a sickening crack, drives his fist into Marcus's face until the man crumples to the ground, unconscious and bleeding. Then Dominic turns. Grace is slumped against the wall, her face bruised, her lips split, her arms still wrapped protectively around the twins. Ava and Mia are crying but unharmed. Grace took every blow meant for them. Grace. Dominic drops to his knees beside her, his voice breaking. "Grace, look at me." Her eyes flutter open. "The babies," she whispers. "Are they are safe, because of you." Tears stream down Dominic's face, the most powerful man in New York, crying openly for a woman who was once just a maid. "Stay with me, please, stay with me." Downstairs, Vince drags a struggling Vanessa through the front door, her elegant dress torn, her perfect makeup ruined by tears of fury. But Dominic does not care about her, does not care about anything except the woman in his arms. "I love you," he whispers, pressing his forehead to hers. "Do not leave me, please." Grace's hand rises weakly to touch his face. Then her eyes close. Grace wakes to the sound of beeping machines and the smell of antiseptic. Her body aches everywhere, her ribs, her face, her arms, but she is alive. Sunlight streams through hospital windows, and when she turns her head, she sees Dominic slumped in a chair beside her bed, his hand wrapped around hers, dark circles carved beneath his eyes. He has not slept. He has not left. "The babies," Grace whispers, her voice cracked and dry. "Are they?" Dominic's eyes fly open. For a moment, he simply stares at her, as if afraid she might disappear. Then tears spill down his cheeks, tears he does not try to hide. "They are safe," he says, his voice breaking. "Because of you. You nearly died protecting them, Grace. You took every hit meant for them. Why? Why would you do that?" Grace reaches up to touch his face, her fingers trembling. Because they are mine, she whispers. From the moment I first held them in my arms, they became my children. I would die 1,000 times to keep them safe. Dominic breaks. He presses his forehead to her hand and weeps, the most powerful man in New York, sobbing like a child. All the walls he has built, all the strength he has worn like armor, crumbles away in the presence of this woman who gave everything for his daughters. The aftermath unfolds over the following days. Marcus Webb is arrested and charged with attempted murder, kidnapping, and a dozen other crimes. This time, there will be no early release. This time, he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Vanessa Hartwell is handed over to her own family. In the world of the Mafia, betrayal is the ultimate sin. No one knows exactly what happens to her, but she is never seen in New York again. Theo recovers from his injuries, already back to keeping his meticulous notes within 2 weeks. The guards who fell during the attack are given heroes' funerals, their families provided for by the Castellano family forever, and Grace heals. On her 5th day in the hospital, Dominic walks into her room carrying a small velvet box. He does not get down on one knee. The chair is too close to the bed for that, so he simply kneels beside her, taking her bandaged hand in his. "I do not have a fancy speech," he says, his voice rough with emotion. "I do not have the right words. I only know that I cannot imagine my life without you in it." He opens the box, revealing a simple diamond ring that catches the light. "Be my wife, Grace. Be the mother of my children. Not just their nanny, their real mother. Let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you." Grace looks at him through tears, this man who killed for her, who cried for her, who sat beside her bed for 5 days refusing to leave. "Yes," she whispers. "Yes." 6 months later, the Castellano mansion is unrecognizable. Laughter echoes through the hallways where silence once reigned. Toys scatter across marble floors that used to gleam with cold perfection. The nursery has expanded into a full playroom, filled with books and blocks and stuffed animals that actually get used. Ava takes her first steps on a Tuesday morning, wobbling across the carpet into Grace's waiting arms. Mia follows 3 days later, determined not to let her sister outshine her, and the first word they both learn to say is the same: "Mama." They call it out whenever they see Grace reaching for her, smiling at her, loving her with the pure, unconditional love that only children can give. Dominic steps back from the family business, handing most of his responsibilities to Vince. He still attends important meetings, still makes crucial decisions, but his priorities have shifted. He comes home for dinner every night. He reads bedtime stories. He changes diapers without complaint. He becomes the father he never had. The wedding takes place in the mansion garden on a perfect spring afternoon. White roses bloom everywhere, their scent filling the air. Silk ribbons flutter in the gentle breeze, and walking down the aisle ahead of the bride are 2 tiny flower girls in matching pink dresses, scattering petals with chubby fists and giggling at the crowd. Grace wears a simple white gown, her hair pinned up with soft curls framing her face. She carries a bouquet of red roses, and her smile outshines the sun. But the moment that breaks her heart in the most beautiful way comes from the front row. Helen, her grandmother, brought from the nursing home for this special day, looks up as Grace passes. For one precious moment, the fog of Alzheimer's seems to lift. "So beautiful," Helen whispers, reaching out to touch Grace's hand. "My beautiful girl." Grace kneels beside her grandmother, tears streaming down her face, and kisses her wrinkled cheek. "I love you, Grandma. Thank you for never giving up on me." 1 year after the wedding, Grace stands by the bedroom window, watching Dominic chase the twins across the garden below. Ava shrieks with laughter. Mia tries to hide behind a rosebush, and Dominic pretends he cannot find them, looking in all the wrong places while they giggle uncontrollably. Grace's hand rests on her rounded belly, where new life grows. Dominic appears behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Boy or girl?" he asks softly. Grace smiles. It does not matter, as long as they are healthy and loved. On the dresser beside their wedding photo sits a small glass frame. Inside, preserved forever, is a tiny blue shoe, soft and faded, and impossibly small. Grace looks at it every day. "Daniel," she whispers sometimes, when she is alone. "My sweet boy, I will never forget you. You will always be my first child, my first love, my first heartbreak." She touches the glass gently. "But you taught me something important. You taught me that love does not end when someone leaves. It grows, it changes, it finds new ways to bloom. I have learned to live again, Daniel, to hope again, to love again. And wherever you are, I know you are watching over your little sisters, over the baby growing inside me, over this family that was built from broken pieces. We are happy now, my darling. Finally, truly happy. This story reminds us of profound truths about the human spirit. It teaches us that no matter how dark our past may be, no matter how many scars we carry on our bodies and in our hearts, there is always hope for a brighter tomorrow. Grace survived unspeakable horrors, abuse, loss, betrayal, yet she never lost her capacity to love. And in the end, that love saved not only herself, but an entire family drowning in grief. It reminds us that family is not defined by blood alone. Ava and Mia were not born from Grace's body, but they are her daughters in every way that matters. Love makes a family. Sacrifice makes a family. The choice to show up, day after day, makes a family. And perhaps most importantly, this story shows us that two broken hearts, when they find each other, do not have to shatter further. Sometimes they fit together perfectly, their jagged edges interlocking, creating something stronger and more beautiful than either could have been alone. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to believe in love again. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to life every single day. We would love to hear from you. How did this story make you feel? Did Grace's journey remind you of struggles in your own life? Have you ever found hope in unexpected places, or love where you least expected it? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and your stories inspire us just as much as we hope ours inspire you. Let us know what is in your heart. Thank you so much for staying with Grace and Dominic until the very end. We are grateful for each and every one of you. We wish you good health, happiness, and peace in your daily life. May you find love that heals, hope that endures, and joy that overflows. Goodbye for now, dear friends. We will see you in the next video.